I want to talk to you today about something that I really believe that God has been working in my life for a while, and He's still doing it. And I'm only just coming to an understanding of sort of how it works. And I've entitled today's message, it's simply called The Pit. And in a pit, like a big hole, a pit. And I'm going to be talking about what happens when you get put in the pit. But before I get to that, I just want to say this, that this church has an incredible purpose. And we as a church, and what God is doing with us in this city of Port Macquarie, it is an amazing purpose. We have an amazing destiny. I want to say this, that every person in this room has an amazing destiny. You're not just here on life to just get through. You're not just here to make it, and it's almost like it's a relief when this life is over. You have an incredible job to do on planet Earth. And there is destiny on the inside of you. Every one of us have an incredible purpose to play, not just in the church, but in the city. See, sometimes people think, well, it's the church. It's what happens here on Sunday, and the church is going to do that. Listen, the church is not the building that we're in. The church is the people of who we are. So on Sunday, the church, because people get together in a place like this. But throughout the week, the church, which is people, go in to do whatever they're doing. And God has an incredible purpose for your life in this city because you are the church. And whether it's in the workplace or whether it's in ministry or whether you're the pastor or whether you're working in cleaning, whatever it might be, don't underestimate the purpose that God has for your life. You are born for incredible stuff. I really believed when I was prepping this today that there are people that aren't even in this building. They're not even here today. You're not here, you're not in the building, and I think God wants you to know that He's got an incredible purpose for you as well. There are people that haven't joined this church that God's got purpose for. There's people that may be watching this on YouTube or on some sort of screen, and I want to tell you that God is doing something in your spirit right now that you are not just going to drift through life. There is a purpose and a destiny for you. And we've got to know this. We don't hear it enough. We get through and we do this and we do that, but there is destiny and purpose for your life in this life, and we need to know it. You're not just born for more, you are born for greatness. Esther 4 says this in 14, you have been born for such a time as this. Now that's a Bible verse, and it's talking to another character within the Bible, but it comes out there as clear as anything. You are not a mistake. You are not just drifting through. You are born for such a time as this. God does not make a mistake in what century He puts you in. God does not make a mistake on what life you are. If you are here today, you were destined to be here today. If you were supposed to live in the 40s or the 1800s, you would have been put there. So God doesn't make mistakes. You are here today. You are listening today. You are alive today because God has a plan and a purpose for you today in this life. And I just believe it's incredible. The NIV says in Esther 4, the same verse I just quoted, you've been born for such a time as this. The NIV says this, and who knows, but you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Same verse, different translation. And the Bible, in this translation, the NIV, it puts it that God is going to put you into a royal position. An important position, and He's going to put you there for a reason. Whether it's that God putting this church into a royal or important position of this city, whether God is putting you in a royal or important place in your job, in your career, in the influence of the people that you see, that you work with, it doesn't matter where it is. Royalty is not about whether you're the king and queen of England. It's whether you've been appointed by God in the position that you currently hold, and you know that it's for a plan and a purpose, and you know it's a royal position because God wants to use you there. You might say, well, like Ellie, she goes, well, I'm just a cleaner. Listen, who knows what other cleaners you're going to bump into? I'm just answering the phone. I don't want to talk to people. Well, who knows what you're going to say to those people? Who knows what's going to happen when you meet those people and they come to that hotel and you've spoken to them on the phone and they come into reception and you check them into their room and you say one word to them in the elevator or one word as they're going out. You may be the only person that says, have a good day as they leave that hotel, and God is going to use you to shine like nobody else has shone. You are in a royal position because God has things for us to do. We are not floating around on planet Earth just to fill in time. There is greatness for every single one of us. Now, if all of that is true, because that's a pretty good intro. I mean, that's a great message right there. I know I'm encouraging myself here and giving myself a clap and well done. That was good preaching. We're feeling that. But if all of that is true, then why the pit? If all of that is true, and I can biblically back it up, then why the pit? Why is there tough times? Why is there things we go through that we just don't want to go through? And why do we find ourselves in the pit more times than we'd like to be there? You know, let me just start it with this. Every great man or woman of God in the Bible went into a pit. Everyone. There is not one great man or woman in the entire Bible that did not have a pit experience, a wilderness experience, a long drawn out, we can't wait, what is God doing experience. Not one. Not one. And I want to talk to you today about one particular guy who got put into a pit, and his name is Joseph. He's a Bible character. But for those that may not know the story, or maybe you've never read or never heard of it, let me just give you a quick recap of the character of Joseph. You'll find it in the first book of the Bible, in Genesis 37. And it says there in verse 2, it says, this is the account of Jacob, that's Joseph's dad, the family line. And it says, a young man of 17. So Joseph was 17 years of old when this story starts, 17 years of old when these things started to happen to him. It says there in verse 3, now Israel, who is Joseph's father, he loved Joseph more than any other son. So he was a favorite one because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made him an ornated robe for him. Now some may say it's a coat. And some may say it's a coat of many colors. You may have heard the story of Joseph with a coat of many colors. The Bible just said it was pretty fancy. It says it's got good stitching on it, and it was handmade. A lot of love was put into this coat. For today, let's just call it a really cool jacket, okay? So his dad made him a really cool jacket. Cooler than all the other jackets that all of the other brothers got, okay? Now, this is when things start to get a little bit crazy. Because in verse 4, it then says this, 17 years of old, when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than the others, they hated him and could not speak a kind word about him. You know, don't be too hard on these guys. I know we're going to unpack this story a little bit, but don't be too hard on it. Do you know what? When someone else gets something that you want, it's really easy, instead of you going after what you want, just to hate the person that's got what you want. It's where human nature just starts to go. And these brothers were no different. They just went straight down to that spot. And you got to know, just think about yourself for a moment. If someone in Australia, it's Australian culture, if someone's got a really, really nice house, better than your house, instead of sort of thinking, oh, one day I'll get a nice house, most of us go, oh, well, good on him. Someone's driving a nice car, nicer than yours, it's like, whatever. There's no love. It's not like, oh my goodness, look at the car that so-and-so got. Wow, that is awesome. No, it's never that. That's not what happens. It's like, where did he get that from? I bet he did something wrong to get that. Bet he's got big payment. That's never positive. Doesn't matter what it is. It's never, ever positive. You know, I look at people, I'm a pastor, so I look at other churches. And this happens to pastors a lot. They look at other people's churches and they're doing the best they can in their church, right? And they look at somebody else's church and they go, oh, well, good on him. Well, they're not really preaching the gospel. or I bet they've cut corners, or I bet there's this, or I bet there's that. It is human nature just to always go down to the negative when someone gets more than you. And the brothers did the same thing to Joseph. So you've got the scene here, right? 17-year-old boy, okay? His dad gives him a really cool jacket. The rest of the brothers hate him just because he got something they didn't have. And then it goes to this, verse 5. It says, Joseph, the 17-year-old boy, had a dream. And when he told his brothers, they hated him all the more. Now, I'm not going to unpack what the dream was, but basically, he just said, I'm better than you. I had a dream, and I am better than you. Not only does Dad love me more, and I got the cool jacket, I've now had a dream confirming I'm better than you. He was 17, okay? Now, some of you are older than 17, and we fall into these same traps, but he had a dream, and it just went downhill from there. In verse 9, it then says, Joseph then had another dream. So it's another second dream. And he told his brothers, he said, listen, I've had another dream. It's amazing. You're going to love it. He said, but in this dream, not just am I better than you, but in this dream, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars are going to bow down to me. Now, the first dream was just saying he was better than the brothers. But the second dream said the sun and the moon, my mum and my dad, and the 11 stars, you 11 brothers, not only am I better, but now in this dream, you're all going to bow down to me. I mean, this guy's like not helping himself at all. I mean, I learned something out of this. It's not really part of the message, but sometimes dreams are just meant to be kept to yourself. If God is going to do something great in your life, no one wants to know, all right? And I'm not saying that sarcastically. Trust me, they really just don't want to know, okay? If God's going to make this church amazing, no other pastor wants me to tell them how amazing this church is going to be, okay? It just doesn't fly, all right? And then if I get them all together and say, you know what, not only is this church going to be better than your church, but all of you churches are going to bow down to my church, and I'm going to have to help you out because you're such paupers. No one cares, okay? No one wants to know. Don't do what Joseph did, okay? If you can avoid it, skip that part. But he says this thing and puts it out there. Now, we've got the story. It's all set. Now, verse 15, okay? Joseph is sent out by his dad, okay, to go and see how the brothers are doing, watching the sheep or the goats, the herds of what they were looking after. And he wanders out there, and it says here in verse 9, he says, then, it's verse 15, sorry. It says, then a man found him, this is Joseph, wandering around in the field, just wandering around in the field. And he asked him, what are you looking for? Now, I thought that was an interesting verse, considering where this story's going. But here's a thought for you. When you've got a dream, and you know that you're destined for something great, and you know that your business or your church or your family, your marriage, your life, and you know that biblically speaking, it's going to be amazing and it's really, really cool. I'm surprised that the next verse, when we set this scene up, is that Joseph is just wandering around. He's not doing anything. Like he was sent to go and see his brothers. Go see your brothers. Going, yep, I'll go check on the brothers. We'll see what they're doing. Yep, they're going good. I'll go back and report to Dad. I'm the chosen one, got the jacket, and I'll let him know what we're doing. But no, he's just wandering around. It's like, I'm on the way to see the brothers, but, oh, look, a fly. That's cute. And, oh, look, just wandering. And here's my thought on this topic. If you know you're for greatness, and you know God's got something great for your life, and everyone talks about that. Can I just ask you, why are we not pursuing that instead of just wandering around? It's like that we get told in church that God's got something great for us, and we go, well, tick that box. Been to church, God's got something great for me. And then we just wander through life. We don't pursue it. We don't aim to unpack it. We don't do anything that's leading us towards this great career or this great job or this business. It's almost like because it's been established that God's got something great for us, that if we sit around long enough, that one day God will hit us with a magic stick and boom, it'll all happen for us. How many people know that's not how it goes down? Like, some of you are sitting here waiting for the magic stick. I get that. That's why, back in the old days, we had the prayer line, because everyone was told they had greatness, and they came out for the magic tap on the head for magic to happen. Let me just tell you something. If God's got something great for you, there's a series of things you're going to go through that you have to learn to become great at it. I could tell you that you're going to be a great business person, but if you don't start business, if you don't go and work, if you don't do your books, if you don't put your BAS statement in, if you don't rally people up, if you don't advertise, if you don't do what businesses need to do to become great, you can sit around till the cows come home and you'll be wandering around in your head saying, I've got these amazing promises, and you'll keep telling everyone who no one cares anyway, but you're not going to get it because you've done nothing about it. He's wandering. Anyway, just not really part of the message. Verse 15, 16, 18. Let's get down to 18. But then he finally starts to be led in the direction of where his brothers are. And verse 18 says, they saw him from a distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Now let me talk about the pit, because that's what the title of the message is. Some of us are harping on that God has allowed us to go into a pit. Some of us are annoyed, angry, dismayed, depressed, that for some reason, we're in a pit in our life. But I want to tell you something. The pit's not a bad place when you realize what was really going on in the heavens. Because what's really going on is that they wanted to kill him. They wanted to take him out. They wanted to finish him off and kill him and just tell the dad that he was dead, and they actually wanted to get him dead. They plotted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. And if you make that your starting point, okay, that I should be dead, the enemy wants me dead, the enemy wants to kill me and wants me to be gone, and my thoughts of in the spirit realm are suicide to finish myself off, and some of you may be battling on that level, but if that's where it starts, that you should be dead, for those that are just in the pit, you're actually doing all right. Because you're still alive. You might be in a pit, but you can get out of a pit. If you're dead, your life's over, and all those dreams and visions and destiny is gone because you're dead. All right? So people and the spirit realm wants you dead, but let me tell you something. Today's a good message because it's really only about the pit. I know when some of you saw that title, you thought, it's going to be talking about the pit. This is not going to be a very encouraging message because no one wants to be in a pit, and who wants to talk about a pit, and why should we even be in a pit? But now, when really this message should be about you being dead, the pit's not a bad place to live. Already moving up. Verse 20 then says this, come now, let's kill him and throw him into the word says, in the NIV, it says, cisterns, which means a pit that holds water. Okay, it's a place in back in the day that was like a big hole, and water would be stored in there, or water would gather in there that they could then use it. But these ones were empty, which we'll find out in just a moment. So they said, let's kill him and throw him into the pit. The King James Version says pit. And they said, and then say that a ferocious animal ate him, and then what will come of his dreams then? See, the brothers are pretty ticked off. And you've got to understand that not everybody on planet Earth is trying to encourage you to go forward. Not everyone in your family is saying, come on, you can do it, you're going to be amazing. Not everyone in Port Macquarie is on your side. Some people want you dead, and they want to say, see, he reckons he's going to be such a great church in the city. He reckons he's going to be so good in his business. He reckons his marriage is going to be a shining light to other marriages. Well, we'll see about that, because he's going to be in the pit, and we're going to just tell everyone he's dead. All right? And that is what was going to happen to Joseph. So he gets put in the pit, and they're going to lie about him, okay? People don't want to see your success, because sometimes your success makes them look bad. And if you want to look at the real root behind why people don't want you to succeed, And if you're running a church, there's people in your church that think like this. If you're a pastor of a church, there's other pastors that think like this. If you're in business, there's other business people that think like this. You know, if you're, whatever you're doing, the root behind why people don't want to see you succeed is because sometimes it makes them look bad because they're not succeeding. And instead of people wanting to build their life in God and to become something that is awesome and great destiny and amazing, because they can't go through that process, it's easier to keep everybody else down on their level than it is to see other people rise above their level. And that's why they want to pull you down to their level, because they don't have the ability, because they don't have God to rise up to your level. But I say ability without God. Listen, this problem is as alive and well in the church as it is in the world. There are plenty of Christians that want to pull you down to their Christian level because they can't achieve where you've allowed God to take you in up to that level. So if they can keep you down at this level, it makes them feel better. That's why like-minded people hang around in groups. People that are successful often hang around other people that are successful, but people that are broken often hang around other people that are broken. People that have done the wrong thing hang around other people that have done the wrong thing. People that drink a lot hang around other people that drink a lot. They don't hang around people that don't drink a lot, because if they can feel like everyone's down at their level, somehow it gives them false comfort. And that's the spiritual reason behind it. Anyway, we're going to get to the good part, getting thrown into a pit. In verse 21, Reuben, who's the older brother, he heard this, and he heard that they were going to kill him, and he tried to rescue him from their hands. He said, "Let's not take his life," he said. And in verse 23, when Joseph came up to the brothers, and he finally got there, this is all plotted before he got there. When he finally got there, they stripped him of his robe, they took his nice jacket, they ripped it off him, and they took him and they threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Now, let me just make one quick comment on that, because I've really got to get moving. But it's interesting that the pit that Joseph was thrown into was actually empty. Supposed to be a container that holds water. If it held water, he'd probably drown. But besides that point, this particular pit was empty. And when you get into a pit in your life, when you know you're in a pit, that pit is often a very empty place. It can be empty from water, so that there's nothing to drink there. It can be empty, it can be empty with spiritually. It's like nobody else understands you. It can be empty emotionally, like, no one gets what I'm going through, and, I'm out here by myself. A pit can be a very, very lonely place, a very empty place. And often I've spoken of people they're in pits in their life, and I've been in plenty of pits. So I know a little bit about this topic, and you just feel like, well, no one understands what I'm going through. This hasn't happened to anybody else. And let me tell you something. Your pit is different to everybody else's. And the reason why you're in the pit is different to everybody else's. But nevertheless, it's a pit. And when you get in that pit, you feel like nobody else understands. This hasn't happened to you, that happened to you, but this happened to me. And everybody feels that their pit is exclusive, and it's a spiritual atmosphere that gets around us that stops us. It stops us from going forward with what God wants to do in our life. And I really believe that God is wanting to help us, understand the pit and see what happens in the pit so we can get out of the pit. Verse 27, it says, "Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him. After all, he is our brother." Finally, some common sense. Instead of killing him and leaving him in the pit, they'll sell him into slavery. What a great idea. So they got him, they ripped his jacket off him, they covered it in animals' blood, they agreed to do that, and when the Midianites merchants came down, they pulled him over, they pulled Joseph out of the pit, they sold him for 20 shekels of silver, and they took him into Egypt as a slave. So everybody got the story. He was put into a pit. But let me tell you something about the pit. The pit was the beginning of the greatness that God had for him. And you've got to understand the pit a little bit different. You see, the pit was the beginning of something great. The pit was the beginning of a great adventure. The pit was the beginning of the purpose that God had for him. The pit was part of his destiny. If he had not been put into the pit, then he wouldn't have got anywhere. Because the pit was the reason that he got sold into slavery. And when he got sold into slavery, he went down to Egypt. And when the famine came, Egypt had the food because he was then put into his purpose. And then he fed the family who would have been died. And then everybody got down into Egypt, which then started the next thing of then the 10 plagues of how they got out of Egypt. But it's almost like when you read the Bible that God almost gets us in the pit. He wants us to be in the pit. He doesn't want us dead. He just wants you in the pit. He wants you to see some stuff and to learn some stuff and say this in your head right now. The pit is the beginning of my great adventure. The pit is the beginning of my purpose. The pit is the very thing that launches me towards this born for more greatness and everything I opened up with. The pit is what gets you ready to be in that royal position to be able to do what God's called you to do. The pit is not something to despise or to get away or to avoid. The pit is the beginning of your future. The pit is the beginning of your destiny. And when you start to see it like that, everything changes. Why the pit? If you decide to do anything great for God, you will start in a pit. Greatness is on the other side of the pit that you've fallen into, allowed yourself to get into, or God has put you in there. Why? Here's number one. You eventually, when you're in the pit, you eventually stop. You just stop. Because you're in the pit. You can't go anywhere else. You're stuck. You can't get in, you can't get out. Here's one of the good things about the pit. The pit forces you to slow down. You see, we live very busy lives. We've got the kids, and we've got the husband, and we've got the wife, and we've got our job, and we've got the career, and we've got to ring this person, do that person, catch up with this person, get here, get that. And you know what? God has got destiny for you, but we are so busy. We don't have time to actually just stop and say, hang on a minute, how am I going to take steps towards my destiny? We're too busy to go towards our destiny. Well, God's going to change the city with His church, but we're too busy to be a church that's going to change the city. Well, God wants to do this in my life, but we're too busy to do it. The pit slows you down. The pit makes you stop. The pit makes you turn off TV, YouTube, Facebook, because it's not in the pit. There's nothing in the pit. We've already established the pit was empty. And it makes you stop. And let me tell you something about being someone that's going to have a great destiny. If you don't stop from your busy life that consumes every second of your day, you will never find your purpose or your destiny. You'll never find it. The pit makes you stop. Number two, you can't get out of the pit by yourself. You know how I know that? Because if Joseph could have got out of the pit after he was thrown in there before he got sold to slavery, he would have climbed out the pit himself and gone back to his dad and dobbed. They took my jacket. Look, there's blood on it. I'm not really dead. Let's kill them. The pit, you can't get out of the pit. You're stuck in the pit. And one of the great things about the pit is it realizes that it helps you understand you can't get to where you're going by yourself. You see, all of us can always do more than one of us. No matter how great your destiny is, and no matter how great my destiny is, and no matter how great anyone's destiny is, we can always do more when we team up with other people than if we just try and be the superhero by ourselves. Television has done us no favors with Superman and Batman and you know, the Hulk and all these other people. In the early days, it was all about Superman and Batman and this and that. And you realize that television is starting to help you out now because we've now got the Avengers. And what that means is all of those superheroes can do more when they're together than what they can do by themselves. Now, if Hollywood has worked this out, surely the church can work this out. Superman may be able to save Lois, but the Avengers can save the whole world. You may be able to do something great, but all of us can do something greater. And the pit puts you in a position where you cannot get out by yourself. And God wants you to know, number one, stop your busy life that's being consumed and never getting towards your destiny. You're just busy. And number two, that you need others. Your destiny is connected to others. My destiny is connected to others. Our destiny is connected. Sheree and I can do more than what I can just do. My family can do more than what just Sheree and I can do. The church can do more than what just my family can do. And churches can do more than what a church can do. We've got to realize God is like, stop. You can't do this thing by yourself. Vulnerability is missing in our lives. It's missing. We all want to think we can do it. Listen, this is like it's only the second point of the pit, but it's a big one that I had to learn. Vulnerability. I'm not going to make this thing by myself. I need other people to help me. I'm in a pit and I cannot get out of it. But if I reach out to other people and say, you know what, I'm stuck in this pit. I don't know how to get over this problem. I'm not sure how to move this thing forward. I don't know how to fix up this. I don't know how to reach my destiny. I've got all the prophecies. I've got the vision and the dream, but I can't get to it. The pit makes you reach out and say, somebody help me. Somebody, I'm not doing too good. The problem with Australian culture, I was talking to someone before the meeting, and a standard answer, how you going? Good. Doesn't matter if you're going good or not. You just say good. No one ever says bad. They're good. How's your marriage? Not great. Is it really great? I mean, your wife's telling you this morning she's going to leave, and you tell everybody else it's great. Doesn't matter what you ask. It's all good. How's your finance? Great. How you going? Good. How's your church? Pumping. How's the numbers? Awesome. We are, you know, until you go through a pit, you don't realize that everything's not always awesome. And God's teaching you that you need other people to be able to get to the destiny that God wants you to do. I now do less in this church than what I used to do, and the church is better off for it, obviously. But connected to this point, it's a good idea. And you've got to realize that we've got to be vulnerable and realize that, you know, you can't do it by yourself. That's why I love this church. I love when we have the panels. You know, our panels get up and they say, you know what, I'm not doing too good. I'm struggling. It's taken a long time. I want to get this position, but I keep getting knocked back. And we go, oh, wow, that's so awesome. She's amazing. You know, the host comes up here, says, oh, we're going to talk about generosity, but I'm really struggling this week. I've got all these bills and I can't. And they go, oh, she's normal. We allow vulnerability on the platform here because, you know what? Superheroes is not what's going to change the world. Vulnerability and saying, I need help and I need this and I'm struggling like everybody else. The pit teaches you that you need other people. You're in the pit. Let me tell you this one. You're in the pit because of your arrogance and your pride. Ouch. That one really hurt when I realized that was me. You are in the pit. The reason why you're in a pit is because of your arrogance and your pride. Joseph was in the pit because he was arrogant about what God called him to do. He thought he could do it himself. He thought he was the chosen one. He told everyone that they're all going to bow down to him. His arrogance and his pride was the reason why he got put in the pit in the first place. And if you don't learn that when you go into the pit, there'll be another pit waiting for you because God wants you to learn this stuff. We've got to realize that these things that I'm pulling out for you today, you've got to learn these things or you'll stay in the pit. You know, you can't think that you're better than everybody else. You can't think about how important you are. Well, I'm the senior pastor. I'm the most important person in the room. That's about one step about God putting you in a pit. Ever heard of pitfall? Because you fall into the pit. Because you're arrogant. You're prideful. God wants all that out. See, we say and we think that we're so important. Let me just talk about importance for a moment. This is a big issue in our culture today. We think that we're more important than everybody else. We think that our comfort is more important than everybody else's. We think that what we drive or what we live in or what we earn, it's more important than everybody else. It's like the Good Samaritan gone bad. We're the church. And we all look at ourselves as in the Good Samaritan story that we're the church. We're the one that stopped and helped the poor guy that was broken and beaten up. Problem is that we're not the one that stops. we're the one that's too busy doing our own thing, taking care of our own interests, building our own bank account, doing our own this and our own that and our own holidays and our own everything else. Everything's about us. Ooh. The pit teaches you, the pit tells you that you're in a pit. If you're in a pit, it's because of your own pride and arrogance. We've got to get through that. The pit gives you time to think. See, the pit, there's just nothing to do in the pit. So you just sit there going, well, what am I going to do? You reconsider your life. You reconsider your actions. You reconsider how you're going to go forward. Until you get to this point, your destiny's still a long, long way away. Because when you sit in the pit, you just go, well, what am I going to do? I got to do things differently. Listen, if you're in a pit, whatever God's called you to do, you've got to do it differently. Because what you're doing is not working, that's why you're in a pit. And the pit gives you time to think. The pit gives you time to reconsider your actions. The pit gives you time to talk to God. You know, you're all alone. There's nothing to do. So what's the last resort? Pray. You know that praying is the last resort for almost everyone? When something goes wrong, and Christian or non-Christian, when something goes wrong, they go, oh, we should pray about it. We should talk to God about it. Oh, look, this is happening in my life. We should pray. I got cancer. Oh, we should pray. Oh, this has gone wrong. We should pray. Oh, my son or daughter's in an accident. We should pray. Listen, the pit teaches you to pray without the problem that's on hand. So you learn to pray because you want to connect with God. You learn to pray because you've got nothing else to do, and then you start this relationship with God, and you start to talk to Him and ask Him, and you're reconsidering your life, and everything just slows down, and boom, you're in the pit. You see, the pit convinces you that you need God in the first place. The pit convinces you that you need God in the first place. You know what? I've been cruising along a lot in my life, and everything's going pretty good. But now I'm in a pit. I think I need God. I need to talk to God. I think I need God. The pit convinces you that you need God. The pit helps you understand that you need to pray. The pit teaches you that you can't do anything for God without God. Let me say that one again. The pit teaches you you can't do anything for God without God. We're all trying to do something for God, but is it God? Is it? Is it for God? Is it? Is it really for God? Is it? I run a church, and I say it's for God. I'm running this church for God. I've been running this church for 22 years for God. But is it really for God? Or is it because I need to have self-worth? I need to be successful. I need importance. I need to show everyone that I can build a church. Is it really for God? The pit teaches you that you can't do anything for God without God. Listen, as the musos come, because I'm cracking out of time. The pit, and it's the last one I'm going to talk to you about today. The pit takes away your pride. We all think we're so good. We're so important, you know. But the pit helps us realize what a small part we play in a big picture. You know, Joseph's, I'm going to save the world. Look at my dreams. My dad loves me. I got the special jacket. Everything's awesome. But the pit teaches you, you play a very small part in a very big picture. Are you destined for awesomeness? Absolutely. Have you been born for such a time as this? Absolutely. Are you born for more? Absolutely. Are you going to be successful? Absolutely. Is God going to change the world through you? Absolutely. But you play a very small part in a very big picture. Do you know it's been 2019 years since Jesus died on the cross? 2019 years. Is our part in this city important? Absolutely. Is your business important? Your marriage? Absolutely. But it's 2019, and let me tell you, there's been 2019 other years where people were born for such a time as that to do something just as important. And the pit teaches you. It teaches you you play a very small part in a very big picture. Joseph was put in a pit. Very small part of the big picture. Because when he got out of the pit, he got put into slavery. When he went from slavery into prison, he got forgotten. He then became the prime minister. He then fed his whole family, and all of Israel came down to Egypt. Very small part in the big picture. All of Israel then comes down into Egypt. There's a bigger picture. Because after that, Egypt puts him into slavery. Another pit for the whole nation. And then we have Moses with the 10 plagues to get them out of Egypt that was in slavery. See, we all think that the 10 plagues from Moses was to get these poor people into slavery to get out. What we don't realize is God put Joseph in a pit to bring Israel down there in the first place. God puts pits for us to walk into. Because Joseph needed to learn his lessons, and the children of Israel needed to learn their lessons. Then they get delivered from Pharaoh. Then they wander around the desert for 40 years, still not in the promised land, learning their lesson. Then they face Jericho, which has got the massive walls that cannot be done. What does God teach them? It's an impossible situation, but with me, you can get through it. It's a very small picture on a very big picture is your part to play. The pit is the beginning of your purpose. I love the pit. I hated the pit when I fell into it, but now I understand the pit. I realize I'm only in the pit because God's got great things for me. Our God is amazing. Got to love the pit. Love the pit. I've learnt more in the pit than I ever did wandering around with my cool jacket. I understand we all want a cool jacket, cool car, cool everything, cool clothes. But the pit is where you learn. The pit is where you grow. If you're in a massive pit right now, God's got a massive destiny for you. If you're in a massive pit right now, God's got something great for you. Don't give up in the pit. It's just the beginning of what God's really called you to do. God bless you.